Hey folks, okay, back. All right, in the previous video we had these three stages, okay, and you had stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. We called them the spiritual childhood, spiritual child, spiritual adolescence, which we can also call spiritual teenager, and spiritual adulthood, spiritual adult. Okay, we also called stage 1 the mental or masculine. And we also said that everything in here that is not along the path of unconditional love, which is the only kind of love there is, that everything here is toxic and that going this way, you would become more mentally ill, because you're going away from unconditional love, and the more that you go this way, the more you become more mentally ill. These are what we call personality disorders, and these are more like neurotic, okay? But when you are on this path, this is the normal path of maturing. This is the path you always were supposed to be on, and it's called the path of unconditional love. And there is a spirit of unconditional love, all right, that is within each of us. But in order to start on the healthy path, right, of unconditional love, you first have to believe that there is a spirit of unconditional love within you. And a lot of times we become aware of a calling or aware of a voice or something that calls us out of this, right? Well, this video that you're seeing right now is one way. For me, I'm calling you out of that to help you find love and peace in your life, true love. And then we said that we were going to talk about how can I love myself, and we were going to circle, well, what does I and self mean when you say how can I love myself, right? And we said when you're in stage 1, okay, that what is in stage 1 is the self, in the which is the ego, the self, which is small s, ego, right? When you're here, you have what? An unhealthy ego. But when you're along here, you have a what? Healthy ego. Okay, healthy ego. All right. So, but the point of the matter is that the I and the self are still just egos. So when I say, how can I love myself? When you're only in stage 1, the I is ego, the self is ego, and ego, loving ego, is just a hyped up ego. Just a hyped up ego. Okay? Because you don't love yourself yet. All right? There's no loving myself yet. Okay, in this stage. And another thing I want to say is this doesn't have to do with age. Okay, yes, the brain develops in a certain, at a certain rate, yes, but you can have a 12-year-old who's more mature than a 60-year-old. Okay, so, and we said that there were 6 steps along this healthy path. Believing in a spirit of unconditional love within you, asking it to come, for you to see it in your imagination, practicing meditation and mindfulness, see it, receive it, focus on it intently, be very mindful of it, because all this toxicity, all the static will start coming at you, trying to get you off of this path, all right? And then communicating with it. What is your intention? Explicitly. What is it that you need? Okay, for right now, we just need to be unconditionally loved. We need to feel unconditionally loved, right? And then once you know the 5 W's, what, where, when, how, and all that, from your spirit and of your spirit, okay, then you have to choose or decide whether you're going to follow that spirit into where you've never been. and you've never been outside of stage 1, it's going to take you into stage 2. Okay? Now, in certain religions, okay, stage 1 is just what they would call the world, period. The world. Okay? So all you know is earth, and that's it, the world. Okay? Conscious, which is stage 1, is consciousness, what you see on the outside. Okay? And what they believe is that after you die, then you will go to purgatory, and then after that, if God, this is infinite grace, loves you enough, you will go to heaven. All right, which is nonsense, because I've been through the entire path, and I know better. Purgatory is actually stage 2, and heaven is actually stage 3. And you don't need to die to experience it. In fact, you were always supposed to experience it while you were alive. That's how you were created. Because God is unconditional love. God is unconditional love. And the spirit of unconditional love is God's spirit. This is the true spirit that Jesus was talking about. This is the path that Jesus was talking about. The enter through the narrow road, right? The river of life in the end of Revelation. Even in Buddhism, they'll call this the middle way. There's several terms for this. Okay, and this was always the path that you were supposed to go down, but either you got sidetracked, or when you were very young, even when you were born, people got you into this toxic way of thinking, this, we'll call it conditional love, but it's not really love. And you wound up in this kind of like toxic, kind of living hell kind of world that you see out right now. It's pretty toxic, very, very toxic, because there's a lot more of these people. A lot more of these people here. It's worse than it's ever been, and a lot less of these people going down this way. Okay, so this, all right, is what Jesus said is the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God. Because what lives in the kingdom of God? Only unconditional love lives in the kingdom of God. All right, this does not have unconditional love in it. All right, in here, this toxic. All right, only from here can unconditional love deliver, or somebody deliver, or the Spirit deliver its unconditional love from. Okay, it delivers itself to here. Okay, but it doesn't live here. Doesn't live here. Okay, it lives inside you, but it doesn't live in that mental part of all this stuff. All right, this is called, by the way, stage 1. If you, in neuroscience, we can call this the hindbrain, we can call this the midbrain, and we can call this the forebrain. Okay, and so anyway, let's say you've chosen and you've decided, okay, that you are going to follow the spirit of unconditional love within you. All right, that you are going to follow it. Okay, it has appeared here for you to get to know it mentally, so that you can now decide to follow it into the kingdom, all the way to the very end. Okay, and mature normally like you always were supposed to. Now, there are 6 steps in stage 1. Well, there are 3 steps in stage 2. Okay. The first one is what's called, we can say, apply, act, behave, starting of your behavior, behave. But really what it all comes down to is trust. Putting your trust that what your spirit said it was back here, it really is. And this is where it shows you its proof. This is the proof in the pudding, okay? Because we can also call this your emotional, which I also call the feminine. Okay, this is where you get wisdom, insight. Okay, because in the second stage you gather all your experience. You gather all your experience. This is your experience in life, okay? And your personal experience, not back here where you were with your family all the time or other people all the time and you depended on other people all the time. And here we're talking about experience where you had to just depend on your own spirit within you, okay? And that's it. You're starting to grow up. And you starting to want to leave the nest, which of course, that's healthy way. But people in the toxic world, they have no, if any, self-esteem. And what is self-esteem? Okay, let's talk about that. Self, small s, which is ego, right, which is here, okay, plus esteem is the same thing as your spirit of unconditional love. Okay? So when we say self-esteem, what we're saying is self, small s, connected to esteem, spirit. All right? And the more you experience with each other, and the more you do with each other, and the more connected you are to each other, and you start getting closer and closer and closer and closer and closer together. Okay, as in any relationship, okay? All right, so now, the first is trust. So you know this in your mind, in your back brain, your hind brain, okay, you've met your spirit, but is your spirit really going to do what it says it's going to do? Because all these people in here, it has been your experience so far that they don't. And they're all about themselves, and they all try to manipulate, and they all want power, and you go to a certain point and they'll just abandon you and all that. And that's why you have mental illness. And that's why there's mental illness. Okay? So this is very, 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 very difficult. This is a very difficult time. Okay, very difficult time. Okay, because in here, you're thinking that you're going to have to be perfect. Through here, you're going to try to be perfect in here, right? So that you'll be able to stand up to the standards of unconditional love, okay, of what you think it is, God, or the spirit, right? That in order for the spirit to love you, you have to be perfect. Well, that was back here. That was toxic. That was in stage 1. That was in toxic. All right. That's not. It's not meant to be perfect. What's meant to be is perfected. And it's not the same thing as perfect. Okay? Because in Greek, that means becoming whole. Whole. But in the West, like in America, they took it literal, like they do, like children do. They took everything literal. Okay? Literal interpretation. And they made perfect to mean perfect. And the way it's commonly known. And that's not it at all. And they are, it's not that they know that or they don't know that. What it is they don't want to try to understand. They don't want to go here because they're too scared. But how courageous are you going to be to take a leap of faith, trust, a leap of trust into the second stage? And this will help you, I believe, give you that courage. Okay? So you're in trust. And during this time, you may think you need to act perfectly. And you probably will try to act because you have no idea if this spirit is going to accept you if you don't act perfectly around it. Okay? So you're going to go into what's called a desert, like Jesus went into a desert. This could even be called detox. This could be called facing your demons, facing your greatest fears. I know when I went through, I was terrified because I was afraid not to be with anybody because I was so scared of the world. Not this world, but we'll call this maybe the real world, the people outside. I was so scared of going through here but I did it anyway. I moved out, but I had support from a therapist. And that's really important. You need support. That's incredibly important. Get support before you jump, all right? Before you take that leap of faith, all right? So before you think about suicide, also think about this. All right, this is the way to make it out of that. All right, so instead of jumping as like off a building or something like that, take the leap of faith instead with support. All right, this is how you're supposed to always grow up, and it's totally worthwhile. So anybody who's thinking about committing suicide, right, start here. Go back here. It's not hard. It's not hard to do. All right. It just takes a lot of imagination. Okay. And start your healthy path. And before you know it, you'll be here. Okay. And this will be tough, but you'll have your support, your therapist also. Okay. Also, other support people who unconditionally love you. Maybe you don't have anybody. So all you can do is count on your therapist and your spirit. And that's it. Okay? Like me. I just walked away from everything and everyone and just did it with my spirit. And I did have a therapist at the time though. Okay? So take a leap of faith into trust. And during this time, when you're facing your greatest fear, okay, and trusting that the Spirit has you, all right, then you'll start making a great deal of behavioral mistakes because in here it will be a lot of anxiety in here, okay, fear, anxiety. And it's like in the Bible, what it says is going through the valley of the shadow of death. Okay, here, all right, but keep on going, and keep on going, keep on going, because you have to experience at least a little bit. You have to experience a little bit of that so you know that the Spirit is with you. Okay? And then when you get to here, you'll get to a step called accept. And this is where you know that when you get to here, okay, and you meet with your spirit again, all right, your spirit's going to say, good job. And you think you've messed up because you think you've totally misbehaved. Totally misbehaved. And your spirit says, no, you haven't misbehaved. You've done well. And that'll blow your mind. And then your perception of how things really are versus how you thought they were is going to become, the contrast is going to just become huge. Because you go, is this the way life is supposed to be? Yes, this is the way life is supposed to be. Okay? There's only one rule. We're back in here. You may have thought if I broke 1 in 1,000 rules, I'd go to hell, right? Well, there's only one rule here, and that is, in unconditional love, we don't diminish ourselves, the value and worth of who we are, nor do we do that to anybody else. So we don't put people down. We don't try to diminish them. We don't try to, because we all know that they are all worthy of God, because God unconditionally loves us. He loves us so much. We are totally worthy. So if you're back here and anybody says, oh, I'm not worthy, they don't know God. And they're too scared to know God. Okay? So in that spirit of unconditional love within them, they haven't gone through here yet. And then you know that they really are very, very, very immature. Very immature. And you are a lot more mature now. Okay? And you realize that the Spirit accepts you just the way you are. That you haven't diminished. And when I say diminish yourself or your worth or anybody else's, I mean on purpose. I mean premeditatively, like the narcissists and all of them up here would do. Manipulate you intentionally and all that. Okay, not really have any, see you just as an object to do whatever they want with. Okay, that's where really these people, I don't know if, it's going to take a miracle for them. Okay, but that's what I mean. If you mistakenly do it, you'll say sorry, right? Okay, and if you, but that's what we always try to do. We try to never, we just don't intentionally premeditatively. We don't diminish our own worth, and we don't diminish the worth of other people. Okay, and that's the only, everything else is okay. I mean, there's no sacraments and dogmas or any of that stuff over here. None of that over here. None. That was all made up. Okay, but really it was made, some made up, some not, but it was all because of literal interpretation. Okay, the letter of the law, thinking, conscious thinking. Okay, but in here we don't go by the letter of the law. We go by the spirit of the law, the spirit of the words, the spirit of what people are trying to say. We understand the spirit of what's in there. Okay, what's in those words, what they're trying to deliver to you. So we live in the spirit of things. We don't live in the letter of things. We live in the spirit of things. Okay, and this is stage 2 is also called your personal unconscious or your subconscious. Okay, personal subconscious, because this is, you're having personal relationship, really one-on-one. Your self-esteem, your self-spirit of unconditional love. So let's go back to here. How can I love myself? Now who's I and who's myself? Okay? I, in stage 2, becomes spirit. And self, in stage 2, stays ego. Or, yeah, stays ego, right? So how can my spirit actually love me? Because back here, I doubt it. I doubt it will. I doubt it will. But here, you find out that it does. Here, you find out that it does. Can your spirit love an ego? Yes, because that's exactly what it is. It is love. So your spirit can love an ego, and we're here. Self-esteem. And we're connected with our spirit. We're connected with unconditional love now. All right? And you feel that, and you see the reality of it. You realize that's the real way you were always supposed to live. And it's so different in contrast to the toxic environment that you were living in, that you become what's called grateful. You feel grateful because these are all feelings. And all these feelings are true feelings that you can now get in touch with because you felt very vulnerable here. But now that you feel accepted, you don't feel as vulnerable anymore. And your feelings can start showing. And you start getting more in touch with your feelings. And you start letting them out more and more. And you trust more and more. Okay? And you just feel so much better in life. And you feel grateful. Okay? Which is the beginning of what's called positiveness. Positivity. And there's a psychology called positive psychology. And this is where it starts, gratefulness. And by being grateful, then you go, okay, Spirit, I'll do whatever you tell me, because if this is how it feels, then I trust you totally. Okay, let's have a deeper relationship, and I'm just go, whatever you want, let's do it intimately together. Intimately. I want to be with you intimately. And this last step in stage 2 then is called devote. Where your devotion lies. Where does your devotion lie? It lies with your spirit. And you get to know each other more and more, and connect and connect and connect even more and more. You start coming together more and more and more and more. Okay? And that is stage 2. All right? So next video, we're going to talk about the next stage. And we're going to talk about how can I love myself and see where that takes us in here.